Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tonight we have an amazing guest on the show. We are talking about recycling, garbage, sustainability, infrastructure, a little bit about everything. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Andrea. I'm the director of social and environmental impact programs at an investment bank that develops large-scale infrastructure. And I'm here today to talk about recycling and kind of what the process looks like in South Florida.
So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, this is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you've never tuned into the show, please feel free to comment, ask questions. Andrea is highly knowledgeable. So let's get started. So there's a difference between trash and recycling.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think something that we can talk a little bit about today is that our understanding of what is recyclable is really broad, and I think we all know what we can put in the recycling bin as paper, cardboard, aluminum, glass, plastics, but it actually gets a little bit more intricate than that, and especially in South Florida, what is actually accepted by our recycling facilities is pretty limited. So most of the facilities down here only accept 1 through 3 plastics. A couple accept 6 through 7, and even within those.
Oh, they're like numbered?
Yeah, if you look at the bottom of your plastics, typically there's a little recycling triangle with a number in it, and that kind of distinguishes what kind of plastic it is. And
did not know that.
Some plastics aren't recyclable at all. Like styrofoam is also an oil product, and that's definitely not recyclable. We hate styrofoam.
It's also not good for the environment. Yeah.
It like never disappears.
I definitely just bought styrofoam plates like yesterday.
Oh no! Never buy styrofoam.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Although like paper plates can't be recycled either, but at least those decompose.
Okay, so good to know.
Yeah.
So I'm a horrible person. Just starting off, we just started the show. I'm a horrible person.
Okay, I mean, once we have a little bit of people on here, I think it'd be really fun to ask you guys a couple of questions about what is recyclable or not, and you can tell us if you think it's recyclable or not, and I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a distinction, right, between what can be recycled and what can't be recycled.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, what we have here is single stream recycling. So we can dump all of our recyclables in our blue bin that the city provides for us. But yeah, again, those plastics and cardboard, like for example, a lot of people recycle their pizza boxes, but pizza boxes that have grease on them are actually contaminating that recyclable pile, so you really shouldn't be putting anything that has food waste in the recycling bin. It really
so basically, as soon as the pizza goes into the pizza box, it can no longer be recycled.
Yeah. Sometimes what I do is I'll rip off the top of the pizza box, because if that doesn't have any pizza grease on it, they'll take that.
Okay.
But yeah, the bottom usually has all
the
nice
grease, all the good stuff
that didn't make it into your stomach. So
you're also an athlete, so I just kind of felt to talk about that. Yeah. So
well, you are too, yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm a novice. So you said something interesting before the show. We were kind of talking about recycling and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So in South Florida specifically, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the same situation happens in other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Our recycling goes to sorting facilities.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happens when you throw away your trash. And this is really something that I would love for all of you to do. I think you can call 401 and ask, okay, who is my waste management provider and where is my trash going? I think once we learn where our trash is going, it becomes a lot more intuitive to what is recyclable and what isn't. And I'm a strong believer that once we understand process, we're able to make better decisions for ourselves and for our communities and for our environments. So, okay, let's go back. Let's start I'm at home. What can be recycled and what can't? So we talked a little bit about those plastics. Typically, let's say, okay, paper, cardboard, plastics, aluminum, glass. All of those things can go into your recycling bin.
So what about liquor bottles that has liquor in it?
You want to wash it out, but glass glass typically is a thing that can be recycled. Basically, the way that glass is recycled is it gets crushed down, and you know how glass is made. Glass is made out of sand, and they have it at really high temperatures, and it becomes glass. So glass can be recrushed, and typically what glass is reused for is for construction material, for aggregate, for road construction, or it's used as a filler, or like it's recrushed down basically into sand. But the thing is that glass has become something that the process by which that glass is broken down is actually really resource intensive, and it costs more money to break down that glass than it does to just use some kind of than it does to use that glass. So and to offtake the purchase of that recycled glass. So a lot of recycling facilities have stopped taking glass because they're losing money on on that recycle of the glass, when they're really in the business of making money off of our recyclables. So that's why it's super important for you to call and see, okay, where does my recycling go? What kinds of plastics, what kinds of paper, what are they actually taking?
Now, this is work, right? That people need to do on their own, and this is a lot of work at times, right? Yeah. With folks who are busy, job, school, whatever.
To recycle?
No, to really take time out of their day, call, hey, and even to understand how these processes work can sometimes be overwhelming.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, another thing that I really want to encourage you guys to do is that when we think about, changing our lifestyle for a way that is more beneficial to the environment, we're really doing ourselves a favor in the future. And here we're talking about recycling and the recycling process and kind of where the system is broken. But what we're taught is reduce, reuse, recycle. And those 3 R's are in that way for a reason, because the best thing that we can do is reduce our consumption of plastics, of resources. Then the next best thing is to reuse. So those glass containers that we're talking about, they'll be around. Like if they don't break, they can be reused for a long time. So try. I think as consumers, when we're making decisions in the store, now that you've watched this show and can just invest a little bit of time in understanding that process, you can make decisions up front rather than having to invest the time into, keeping up with what is being recycled right now and what isn't, and really focus more heavily. And really that's what I do on the reduce and reuse parts of it. And I think there are a lot of great resources out there about how to live net zero or close to net zero lives. I have a couple of friends that, for example, have given up the use of single-use plastic for Lent, and I think we're 3 weeks.
So by single-use plastic, you mean like plastic that can only be used one time? Mm-hmm. And so that would be plastic bags. What else?
Yeah, or like plastic cups.
Plastic cup over there. I'm just a mess. I'm just like everything you're speaking against. Yeah.
I think like right now there's a huge movement that encourages people to have their water bottles or have their coffee mugs, and at the end of the day, you're saving money if you buy a single $40 steel container. I have mine right here.
See, there you go. Yeah.
A steel water bottle that'll last you, unless you're like me and you leave it everywhere, but it'll last you a long time, rather than having these plastic water bottles. That's the biggest. I think
if you go to Ross, they sell you these huge water bottles that are like $4.
amazing.
I have one over there. Yeah, use it all the time.
And how many plastic cups are you gonna get for $4? I don't know, maybe like 50.
Brita filters. I started using a Brita filter instead of buying a bunch of bottled waters.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of amazing sometimes. So yeah. So we have a question from Kosher Woodlands. So how clean does your plastic need to be before you throw it in recycling? Like I rinse it off, but don't use soap to wash sometimes. I always thought they steam cleaned the stuff at the facility.
All right, what was his name?
It's her name. Kosher Woodlands. Yeah.
Okay, the fact that you're rinsing is already awesome, and you're already doing better than like 80% of the people that are recycling, because the reason that we started talking is because I got to tour one of our recycling facilities that's actually in Coral Springs, and the fact of the matter is that the majority of people are throwing away what's really garbage into the recycling. So the recycling center really looks like it's a garbage processing facility, because I saw a half-gallon jug of milk that was still half full, and people are throwing that out. So if you're rinsing, that's amazing, and you're doing it right.
One thing you said before the show was that, so she has this like amazing Instagram story. Can they follow you?
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm guessing
You'll
it's
tag
on
me?
your. Yeah, I tagged you today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys can find me and follow me, and it's in my highlights.
Yeah, it's in your highlights. Yeah. And one thing you were saying is that what the video doesn't capture is the smell of the facility.
Yeah. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out, because that intuition that I was talking about, like once you know what the recycling process is like, you're like, oh, okay, this is how it happens, and I can understand what I can put in or not. And I can talk a little bit about that process too. But I think with the smell, it's like so many people are putting in things without washing and that are actually garbage, and I think really anything that's food rots and smells so bad. So we went to this recycling facility, and in my mind, going to a recycling facility, I was gonna go and find all this plastic that everybody has rinsed out, and it's been amazing, and it's like this really sparkling clean thing.
Did you ever watch the Married School Bus, the recycling episode?
I don't think so.
No,
but it was like that. It was like, everything is sorted magically on conveyor belts, and it looks like brand new. Yeah, it's not like that. It's garbage. It looks like garbage. And literally, like, if you go to my story, you'll see it's garbage trucks that are dumping the garbage.
Shocked. Yeah.
And so, okay, let's talk a little bit about, once we get to the recycling
we have
facility.
a question. Another question.
Yeah.
They said, good evening to both of you. What is your take on a small country like Singapore that is taking sustainability to a new level compared to the U.S.? FYI, they have man-made islands using trash. I don't really know what.
And actually, so there are a couple of things that are really progressive, and I think in the U.S. there are a couple of examples of them doing that. I don't know if you guys have been up in Broward County. There's Peace Mountain Park is actually a park that used to be a landfill, and I know a lot of people joke about how Florida is so flat that our highest point is Mount Trashmore, and that's also a landfill that's been covered up and it's turning grassier. And there's a park in New York City that's called Fresh Kills, and it's amazing, and they've turned it into like this beautiful park and it also used to be a landfill. So there are things that are happening. I mean, the fact of the matter is it's really sad that we are burying our trash and having to reconvert it into beautiful things. That trash isn't going anywhere. We're just hiding it. What we really need to think about is, how do we reduce our trash? How do we change the way in which we consume things, that we're not producing these mounds and mounds of trash? I read the other day something that just totally blew my mind, and it's like, every plastic toothbrush that has ever been created still exists. You know? Like, how many toothbrushes have you had in your lifetime?
So why is that? Because they're not...
It's plastic. It's not going anywhere. It's not anything that can be melted down and reused. Every single toothbrush that has ever been made is somewhere.
That's wild. I just bought an electric toothbrush for $20. It's
amazing. But actually electric toothbrushes are something that it's actually something that's a little bit more sustainable, because it at least has a part of a toothbrush that you're going to be reusing, right? You're changing out the head supposedly every 3 months.
Yeah, of course.
but it's something that detaches, and at least the big chunk of it you'll have for a longer time. The amount of plastic that you're throwing away is reduced.
So,
but the best thing toothbrush wise is to buy a bamboo toothbrush. They're really good.
Okay.
And they'll biodegrade.
Are they expensive?
There's all price ranges. You have to look. Yeah.
So please feel free to call me ignorant, because I had no idea that these toothbrushes, so they cannot be melted. They're here forever.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's like a little mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comment real quick. Wow, that's crazy. I looked into bamboo toothbrushes, and couldn't get over the $6 price compared to $1 plastic toothbrush.
That's true. That's very true. But I think also if you're investing a little bit into those $6, the bristles will typically last you a little bit longer. So I think, yeah, we have to make decisions as consumers and think, okay, is this impact that it's going to have on my environment and really the future of the planet something that I'm willing to spend the little extra money on? And I think maybe look for a bamboo base or a bamboo head, and you can replace it. Think about where you can invest your time. And I think you'll find a way in which you can contribute your drop of water, and maybe it's not in toothbrushes, maybe it's in the water bottle, and really make the decision that you think is justifiable.
One thing that we kind of brought up before the show, we're talking about capitalism a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you missed the episode on capitalism, please feel free to look on our YouTube link. Link is in the bio. And the more and more we talk about this, the more and more I just can't not think about capitalism, because part of the way capitalism works is that it seeks to kind of, not only does it kind of perpetuate ideas of individualism, so everything is up to you as an individual, but it's kind of the logic that it seeks to use. So now it's on you specifically to do this, to make this a better situation, as opposed to looking at this structurally, where there's bamboo toothbrushes don't have to be $6. Right. They could be $1 too if we wanted to, and by we. These companies, right? And
I think it is really important for us as consumers and as individuals to think about the ways in which we can make our thing. But as you're saying, it's a much bigger structural thing. I think, for example, okay, we were talking about toothbrushes. Let's talk about toothpaste. It's all coming in a plastic container, and we're also probably wasting toothpaste, because how hard is it to get toothpaste, that last little bit of toothpaste out? And I think the most absurd thing of toothpaste is that the plastic toothpaste tube comes in a cardboard box. What do you do with it? You throw it in the garbage can. And that cardboard box really doesn't serve any function, except it makes it look prettier for us, and is more marketable on the shelf at the grocery store or at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
So it's things, and there are places in Europe that have started to sell not just the toothpaste tubes without that cardboard box, but also refillable toothpaste things, and that's something that I've looked for, and that's not something that is available to us as consumers in the US. So I think that there is this broader umbrella that is structural and systemic that we don't even really have a say in, but can start demanding as consumers, supply and demand. But it's a lot longer of a process and a conversation.
Absolutely. So we have a question. Let me see here. What advice do you have for people who live in small towns or less progressive cities that don't have really any options to recycle?
Yeah. Okay. Again, I think first of all, spend some time seeing if you are in a smaller town, what are your options? I think a lot of times we aren't aware of what they are. And there you'll be able to know. I know, for example, a friend of mine lives just in the outskirts of Boston, and it's a smaller fishing town. And in order to recycle, he actually has to take his own recyclables to the recycling facility, which, if you think about it, is I think of that and I'm like, I'm already busy. I already don't have enough hours in the day. There's no way that I'd be able to carve out that time to take my recyclables to the recycling facility. But on the flip side of that, recycling has become such a more hands-on process from him. It became something that actually he did with his grandpa when he was younger. So it's actually something that now holds this like weight and memory with him of his grandpa, and it's actually something that he enjoys. And because it's a lot more hands-on, this recycling process, and he has such a more personal relationship with recycling, which sounds silly to say, it just isn't, it becomes not a burden, you know. So that's also kind of what I want to challenge you guys to do today, is like find those ways in which you can take ownership of your consumption as yours.
Yeah, no, I think very well said. So let's go back a little bit to the recycling plant. No, it's cool. These are great questions. Thanks so much for asking. Please feel free to continue asking. So if we rewind a little bit, so when we do recycle, at least in South Florida, and I'm sure it happens around the country as well, this isn't going to a recycling plant.
Okay, so our recycling facilities, I think a better way of naming them is a sorting facility. So what happens is these garbage trucks or really recycling trucks bring the loads of recycling to one of our recycling facilities. I know at least Waste Management is my trash provider, and they have one facility in Miami-Dade, one facility in Broward, one facility in Palm Beach with recycling facilities. And actually I think the Broward and Miami-Dade ones are in the top 5 biggest in the, you guys can fact check me, I'm not really 100%, but they're top 5 biggest in the nation.
Our waste,
our recycling facilities. The two recycling facilities. They process like an absurd amount of tonnage of recycling a day. But so basically the trucks dump everything that's in them into this big huge room, and you guys can I this is what's in my highlights, so you can definitely take a look at it. And then
it's A_SALO.
SALO, yep. And the trash gets sorted into what is too contaminated for them to invest the time into continue sorting, and what goes to one of the either burn or bury we were talking about is really where trash goes. It either goes to a waste to energy plant or gets buried underground. And the majority of it, I think it's like 80% of it gets buried, of our trash. Once we have like the cleaner, thank you to everybody that's rinsing it, that can be sorted, it goes to a machine that has these like star discs. And it's actually super cool how it works. It's basically like a ramp filled with discs, and you can see this on my story too. And the discs kind of are chomping, and what happens is like through the holes in the discs, the heavier metals and plastics fall to the bottom, and the paper gets sorted all the way to the top. So now you have, from our single stream recycling, that's what this process is called, everything is put into the blue bin. You get 2 belts, one with paper, one with plastic, and glass and aluminums, everything else that was heavy. So the paper is sorted. It goes kind of up where there's manpower. There's real live humans that are people,
or women power,
or woman power. Yeah. That are spot checking for it, and there's a certain tolerance of contamination that can happen. So they're kind of like taking out everything that isn't paper products into other bins. Oh, here's a really cool important thing, like plastic bags, not recyclable. They damage the machines, they get stuck. And every time that a machine is stuck, it means that more of our recycling is going to the waste plants, because the machine is inoperable, so they're not going to let the recycling pile up. It's just going to go to the waste. So don't throw your plastic bags.
And people have to get in there and pull it out with their hands, right?
And cut it out. You can see it in my story too. So plastic bags, where do they go? To probably your grocery store has a place that is recycling just the plastic bags, and
really?
They kind of go into I know at least where the Winn-Dixie that I shop at, has bins at the door that you can dump the next time you go shopping, come back and put your plastic bags in it.
So
don't put them in the recycling though.
But part of the point of this is that these facilities don't recycle. They're just sorting out stuff,
exactly.
Right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so now we have the second belt, which is the heavier things, and there's like these magical machines that are optic, and so they're kind of flashing light at these things, and based on the color and on their reflectivity, it's sorting, and it's crazy how accurate it is. There's also, for the metals, there's a magnet that creates an eddy current, and it kind of like blasts all the aluminum away from the plastics. So,
very interesting.
So first it gets sorted, paper and heavy things, then metals and plastics, and then the optic sorters are flashing lights and then shooting streams of air that will sort the plastics into the different plastic types. It's really, really cool. I'm kind of nervous. Yeah,
kind
I don't know.
A little bit. But the point here is that these facilities do not recycle.
Are sorting.
They're only sorting. Nothing is being recycled here.
So the thing is then that there are different off-takers, different plants that are buying different things. The most pricey commodity is aluminum. So aluminum is something that everybody loves to recycle because it's really easy to melt back down, and there's actually a higher sale price that these recycling facilities that we now know are just sorting facilities are getting a bigger bang for their buck. They're getting more money for the same tonnage of aluminum than for the tonnage of plastic or paper. So they really love your aluminum. They don't love your glass because they're losing money on sorting glass.
So what ends up happening? So now these companies, these facilities, have to kind of sell.
Right.
What
so
has
there's
been sorted.
exactly. So there's a sales team, and they're the ones that are constantly negotiating, seeing at what price that specific commodity is going for, and finding the best price for it, and shipping it off to most likely China. And that's where we come into a whole other ball game of problems. And there's a lot of reading out right now because it's a really fresh new thing. But basically, a lot of the Canadian, Australian, U.S., and some of European recycling has been going to China to really be processed and turned into its like second life, the recycled paper, the recycled plastic products. China at the end of last year implemented a new policy which is called the National Sword, and they have basically seen that there are a lot of investigations and like bringing to light of the human rights issues that were happening at these actual recycling facilities that were like breaking down or like milling down the plastic in order to be able to melt it back down to reuse. Like people were inhaling the plastic dust and getting all kinds of health issues. So there's a documentary on it, and it's just kind of been exposed.
Is it on Netflix?
So I don't know. I don't even remember the name of it, but I'll look it up and put it in the comments and send it to you guys so you guys can check it out if you're interested.
So Coastal Woodland is saying, so we even outsource our trash.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
There are. It's not all of it. There are like recycling facilities that are actually like paper mills that are buying, but it's by far not enough what we need. We were talking earlier about how I work in infrastructure development, and in my view, the infrastructure of the U.S. is really lagging. Most of our infrastructure, especially in the Northeast, like for example, all of our water and stormwater infrastructure is 200 years old. Or maybe not 2, but maybe 100 years old, and it's definitely not where we need it to be. So I think of the U.S. in terms of infrastructure really as a developing country. We have such a huge infrastructure gap, and these waste management and recycling facilities are one of them. So I think we need to really... Okay, so we were talking about China, and
so they said no.
Yeah, China is saying no.
It's called the National Sword.
National Sword.
That's the policy that they implemented.
Yeah,
So they're no longer taking our recycling.
And I think, well, right now I think they've banned something like 24 different things that they're absolutely not trash things that they're not importing. And there's there's like reason to believe that by 2020 they're not going to be taking any. So everybody in the waste and recycling world is kind of freaking out, and they're saying like, this is the end of recycling as we know it. We have to rethink about everything, how it's going to be, because the facilities that we do have in the US now are able to be picky about what recycling they take in, because they're operating like at capacity of what they are able to process. So now they're saying, okay, like, we're at capacity, we're only going to take the things that are going to make us the most money to recycle. So that's why there's a lot of talk where I live about how we can't recycle glass anymore, and it's because of what we were talking about. Like, nobody is buying glass to recycle, so and reuse. So we have, I think, yeah. Again, I'm going to emphasize again that I think really the solution that we can implement is more in the first two R's: reduce and heavy emphasis on reduce, and heavy emphasis on reuse. But when we are recycling, there's a gap of our capacity and the infrastructure that we have in the U.S. to process what we're consuming and producing of recyclable goods.
And even one of the questions that we were asking before the show was, how is it that the United States, we're the most powerful nation, probably most powerful nation in the world, like, doesn't have enough spaces, like, or hasn't provided enough spaces to recycle?
Yeah, and I think that's where we were talking about capitalism, and I think it comes down to efficiencies, and whenever, like, probably highly politicized decisions were made about where to put our tax money, whether it was into creating recycling and waste management facilities, or like being efficient about it because there was an off-taker and a buyer for recycling. It was a lot more time cost effective to just send it to China. But I think we have to take ownership of our own problems.
No, absolutely. And especially with like this political kind of administration that doesn't really believe in science, I wonder what's gonna happen.
Sure, but I think also we've talked about politics, and this is not an endorsement by any means, but I think also the fact that this administration economically is conservative. I think that there's a really big opportunity, and his policy, or at least a lot of what he said, is like, now we're going to invest a lot in U.S. infrastructure. There is an opportunity for us to kind of be the rudders in the ship that make that development of that infrastructure, that like funding is being streamed to develop that in the right way.
I hope so because I mean, I'm just gonna take us down a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And Trump and his conservative money, because he really wants to build a whole wall. All right, so that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But so what were some of kind of like the biggest takeaways from like the recycling or the assortment tour?
Yeah, honestly, I learned a lot about what is of what I like. A lot of what I thought was recyclable isn't, because there is not, where I live, the like infrastructure in place to recycle those things. We were talking a lot about how plastics 1 through 3 are accepted here, but there's plastics all the way to number 9, or it might even be 11. And there are places in the world that recycle all of those, and consumers and stakeholders are a lot more aware of what plastics go where and what plastics can be recycled and what can't. Here, there are even some plastics that are 1 and 2. I think for South Florida, a good rule of thumb is if a plastic bottle has a narrow neck.
Yeah, I saw that in your story. Yeah.
Has a narrow neck, it's recyclable. And even if we just do a really, really good job of recycling water bottles and recycling like our detergent bottles, we're already doing like heaps and bounds more than what we're currently doing with like sending trash into the recycling.
And even with water bottles.
So,
Yeah,
like if you have one takeaway from this, it's like, I'm just gonna recycle my water bottles. I'm just like, that's all that I'm gonna do. My Sutter Hills water bottle, I'm gonna take the cap off and put it in my blue recycling.
Yes, take the cap off, because if you don't, that water's stuck there for like eternity.
Yeah.
Right, because plastic is not biodegradable.
Right.
See, learning. So we have a question. We had another question earlier that I wasn't able to ask it. In this environment, I think the question was, is it 100% possible to be 100% just like sustainable?
Absolutely. I think there are great examples of people that are doing it. My friend that actually organized this recycling tour facility for me has a really great Instagram. It's called A Net Zero Waste. And she
A Net Zero Waste?
Yeah, her name's Elena. And A Net Zero Waste Culture, and her Instagram is full of tips and tricks about how to reduce the reduce your consumption of single-use plastics and really turn your lifestyle into a net zero waste. I also know of another great page that's also a local super powerhouse mom. Her name is Minimalina, and she has a website where she has a lot of these options, like the bamboo toothbrushes and things that you can incorporate into your day-to-day to also reduce consumption of unrecyclable and trash.
We have some other questions here.
Yeah.
So real quick, the cap isn't recyclable. We're talking about the water bottles.
The thing with the cap is that they're 2 different plastics, so they need to be sorted differently. At least the recycling facility that I toured does not recycle the plastic caps. So it's just like an extra step. Part of the recycling plan is like the plastics get smushed down. So I think a lot of times that force is strong enough to blow it off, but it's just, you can be a better recycler if you take it off.
And so what are your thoughts on waste to energy plants?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have one waste to energy plant here. We were talking about it earlier. I think only about, again, I'm not sure of the numbers, but I think it's somewhere like 10 to 15% of our trash goes there. The rest goes to a landfill. And there's also a lot of new technology in waste to energy that is a little bit cleaner. And the other thing that we are talking about here is like, yeah, cool, some of our energy comes from waste to energy, and now there's a little bit more solar stuff going on. The majority of our energy in South Florida is coming from nuclear.
Yeah. So, but overall, you give it a good. What are your thoughts on the nuclear stuff too? I don't know if you.
Depends on the facility. Short answer.
Yeah. So what about here in South Florida?
It's where most of our energy is coming from. Like radioactivity, not good. It can be contained, and I've seen a lot of technologies that are really interesting in Canada about like smaller nuclear energy production that is a little bit more contained and safer. I encourage you to figure out where your trash is going. I encourage you to figure out where your energy is coming from, where your water is coming from, where your wastewater is going.
Absolutely. So I think one of the last things I wanted to ask you was, in regards to the tour, can anyone go on these tours?
It does have to be organized. Like I said, a net zero waste culture, Elena has organized quite a few. I actually think there's one coming up at the end of March.
Oh,
there are probably still some slots that you can go to. Highly encourage it. It's a little bit hard because you know, it's a facility that's open on the weekdays. So if you work in the weekdays, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to get to tour it. But the person that gives the tours, his name is Shiraz, and he's awesome and is a wealth and fountain of knowledge on waste management.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions or any comments? Do y'all have any questions, any comments? Because this has been like extremely just like insightful. I didn't know.
Cool.
Like I didn't know any about this, honestly.
Yeah.
Like anything about this.
I didn't either, and I think it's so easy to just kind of go through the motions of our day-to-day life without thinking about the infrastructure that enables it.
Yeah.
And enables, you know, like, honestly, if none of this were in place, we would have to figure out what to do with our trash, and we probably wouldn't have as much trash because it wouldn't be so kind of it wouldn't be so easy just to throw it down the chute or to put it in our garbage bin, you know. So you know, I think we do have to acknowledge the fact that there is this off stream and there is this infrastructure in place that is taking care of it for us, but it's just become something that is kind of out of sight, out of mind. So we're not really thinking about it.
No, I think that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, even like with the small things that, I mean, I have plastic cups, I have styrofoam plates, you know, and it is this thing that I kind of pushed out of sight, out of mind. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
I think also, like, obviously I'm kind of an infrastructure nerd, and I think it's super cool learning how these machines work and how they're functioning and what they're doing. But I think also, like, we've talked a lot about education, and something that we were talking about earlier is how in my experience in elementary school, we had the different chores that maybe we got picked for, being line leader, or being the like teacher's helper that day, or I don't know, there are different things. And I remember
patrols.
Yeah, like the safety patrols. I remember one of the like chores that we had in elementary school was that you had to be the lunch monitor and pick up everybody's trash at the end of lunch that they had left on the tables, and part of the trash was recycling, and I think that was everybody's like least favorite thing that they could get picked, that their name could be on. So there's kind of like this negative association with trash, and that it's dirty, and that you're a litter bug, and like all those things have a negative connotation. So if we reteach that, and instead of just kind of drilling, like putting up a nice little triangle on the on a poster on a wall that says reduce, reuse, recycle, we really have to teach, how do we reduce, how do we reuse, how do we recycle,
like active approaches.
And make it a thing that is not punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope y'all learned. I know I learned a lot. Like I said, we do this every single Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we're talking about how to develop your own app. So we have some guys on the show who've been developing their own app, which is pretty cool. The following week, we have a show on menstruation. So we address something different every single week. So thank you so much again for being here. If y'all have any questions, please follow Andrea. I put her Instagram handle up there. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for
we'll see
having
y'all
me.
next week.
Bye.